Alright, I think you should be able to hear me now, so I'll just have that confirmed. If yes, then this is one of my favorite runs. I'm really pumped that you guys are in here. This is the Ori and the Blind Forest Definitive Edition, all skills, no autobans, and teleport anywhere race between Athos and LurkingAssassin. And we have two special guys with us commentating. That's Grim and Halcyon, so you guys can take it away now.
Thanks, Saji. And for the record, don't worry, we will just be calling this category all skills rather than its big, long mouthful of a name. The restrictions aren't too important for our purposes now. Anyway, yeah, this is a race between Athos and Lurking Assassin. They're both very, very talented and very comparable runners, which I think is cool. On commentary, my name is Grimelios, and I'm joined by my friend Jay Halcyon. What's up, Al?
Hey, Grim, thanks for that intro. I'm really looking forward to this race. Both of these are excellent runners. They've got 28-minute times in this game, which is extremely fast. They're both top 10 runners. And in addition to that, their PBs are only about 15 seconds apart. So we should be up for a very nice close race today.
Yeah, and bit of a true story. I watched both of these guys' PBs 2 days ago, and I had to check 2 different times. I had to hover over the window and verify that I was watching the right person because their runs were so similar.
You know, I actually had the same experience prepping for this.
Anyway, we'll get into more details about the run itself. I realize many of you watching have never seen this game before, but like I said, we'll get into those details. And I think I'll go ahead and give our guys a countdown if we are ready to get started. I'll verbally say it as I type as well. All right. 3, 2, 1, go. And hopefully Athos and Lurking will see that we're having some interesting communication. I see Athos getting started over on the left and Lurking on the right. We are off. What do we expect to see in the early game?
Well, of course, Ori and the Blind Forest is a 2D Metroidvania platformer, so we're going to see throughout the run a lot of emphasis on platforming and movement, but right at the beginning here, we're just going to see a lot of running and jumping because that's really all our runners can't do until they start picking up some of those skills.
Yeah, that's right. As in many games, jumping is slightly faster, and I'm talking like frames faster, but I mean, it is frames faster, so we'll take it. One thing to know right off the bat, since I'm not sure if there's a better time to say it, as you watch this run, you'll spend most of the time without the user interface. The reason is that when the UI is off all text boxes and dialogue, it doesn't even show up, so you don't have to mash through anything, and it's a little bit faster. What that does mean, though, is that Athos and Lurking have to work harder to kind of mentally track their own health and energy, which can be, I mean, they know what they're doing, but it's just another thing to consider in this run.
Yeah, and you'll see occasionally either or both runners will, there's a hotkey for it, just Alt-U in the game to quickly toggle it on and off. And you'll see both runners probably do that just to double check on various things. But as we can see here, both our runners have picked up their first skill, our little buddy Sign. He's going to let us use a little basic attack that our runners just used to deal with those Frankie enemies. And then they will be heading out into the wider world.
Yeah, there is combat in this game. It's given an intentional kind of lower emphasis than the movements. Now that we have access to Spirit Flame, things get a little bit more interesting. Both Athos and Lurking are playing on keyboard mouse, which means that they can use the scroll wheel to do these really quick volleys of double attacks, take out those brambles, take out these enemies real quick. Also important to note that both guys have been taking intentional damage so far, so that's not mistakes. Even though the health is hidden, their goal is to get down to ideally exactly 1 health in preparation for an intentional death coming up to this door. This is a trick called Ghost Door.
Yeah, and by simply saving here and then dying with the keys in the door, as you can see there, the door remains open when you respawn, so we don't have to sit through that animation. So, saves about 5 seconds every time we do it. It's a nice little thing, and you'll see that one several times throughout the run, including the intentional damage to set it up.
Yeah, all of this movement might look pretty straightforward. It takes more practice than you'd think. Lurking on the right took some damage. He's down to 1 health. You saw him toggle his UI for just a moment to verify that. We're going out of our way to get keystones, which are just a resource used to open doors. What our objective is at the moment is to get to the first skill tree of the game. Remember that the category is called All Skills. The first skill tree gets you Wall Jump. And we'll be getting down there shortly. I'm going to pay attention to Lurking on the right. Make sure that he's kind of safe. Oh boy. So there we see.
That was spooky.
Yeah. Smart job by Lurking, though. If he had died there, that would have been catastrophic. As it is, that only cost him, what, 2 or 3 seconds?
Yeah, if he had taken a death there, he'd be back about 50 seconds to his Ghost Door save, which would be quite a deficit to make up for. But as we can see on the left now, Athos, and then Lurking on the right, picking up that first skill tree animation. This is going to give them wall jump. In Ori and the Blind Forest, wall jump does not require you to go between walls back and forth, so we'll see both of our runners able to just scale one wall infinitely as long as they have wall to do so. And coming up here now, they've been managing their XP very carefully so that they can use timed level up. When you level up in Ori and the Blind Forest, as we can see here, you get this nice explosion, does a bunch of damage, and our runners use that to clear out those brambles so they can continue on quickly.
Yeah, one fascinating thing about this run is on top of the execution on the movement and everything, there's a lot of this kind of metagame routing. So for pretty much the entire run, you're routing out your health, you're routing out your energy, you're routing out your experience. So that level up is not going to be the only timed important level up in the run. It's just the first one that we've seen. With wall jump out of the way, Lurking and Athos are running back over to the right. They're heading towards Blackroot Burrows, which is the location of another very important skill. But at the entrance, there's a cutscene, and how it would be nice if we had a way to skip it.
It would, and thankfully we do. So we'll see Athos, and then followed closely by Lurking, doing something interesting here. He's going to open up his ability menu and then trick the game into letting him move behind it. So this up, he can level up an ability on that menu. The game will save. He'll do it. So
that's called,
as we can see now, he's walking through.
Sorry, I half interrupted you there. That trick's going to crop up a bunch of times. So if you ever see these guys running around with their ability menu open, that's what's going on. But here we are into Blackroot. Blackroot is a very dark and spooky place, and it's also very cycle-based. Both Athos and Lurking are sitting at 3 health, which means that if they fall into these spikes, they will take an instantaneous death. Athos made a intelligent safety save over on the left side, still just a few seconds ahead of Lurking, due to Lurking having to be a little bit more careful early on.
Yeah, and our runners are able to save in many locations throughout this game. The basic mechanic of Ori and the Blind Forest is you'll use energy to save, but throughout the run, we'll be getting more applications to use that energy for. Oh, that was a speaking of safety save. Getting those abilities will make it harder for our runners to take the time to save, but
well, bad news for Lurking means good news for Athos. This is a bit of a zero-sum game. So far, everything seems to be going very cleanly. You saw Athos stand still for a few seconds. That's to manipulate a platform cycle, not in this room, but the one next to it, which we'll be getting to in a moment. Meanwhile, Lurking, due to that death, is trailing even further behind. Decides to not do an exit and reload. Apparently is confident enough in his cycles. He's going to have to wait on these, and they're going to be kind of slow, though. So this is even more of an advantage over to Athos, who did catch his platform cycle. So good job there.
Yeah, the platform cycles in Blackroot are pretty difficult for us to really speed up more than just these little manipulations here and there. So being able to catch those cycles is essentially the only way we can go faster in this area.
Yeah, I should say, for anyone who's never seen this game before, if you're not following everything that's happening, that's okay. It's, I think, a more complicated run than it might appear, but we'll do our best to keep up with it. Athos on the left doing another save anywhere trick. He's going to wait until a certain point in Ori's animation and then spend an ability point that skips the cutscene early and allows him to get to the dash tree. What's dash?
Well, dash is quite possibly the most impactful addition in the definitive edition of this game. It allows us to go very quickly along the ground, as we'll see from Athos right now, as well as later on we'll be able to upgrade it to do some very, very fast movement. So look forward to that. On the right side, we're going to see Lurking has chosen to do a slightly different method of skipping this cutscene, which is going to be barely a couple seconds faster on net. But in return for that, he gets to do a little bit of crushing the orb and then move blindly during this tree cutscene animation.
Yeah, so we're going to see if Lurking can get across. Meanwhile, Athos has been...
Oh, no.
He fell. That's bad news. The game autosaved. And he fell again. This is bad news for Lurking. he's going to do his best to work his way out of this hole, literally. Meanwhile, Athos on the left is about to do his Frankie Walk, a magnetless version of it. Just take our word for it that that is much harder than it looks. Was successfully able to get through the door, though. This is a sequence break, and it's a pretty huge sequence break at that. It's been around in the game for a long time, but it's changed forms. From there, using his quick flame that allows you to shoot volleys of 3 shots rather than 2 to get through those brambles, grabbing an additional energy cell and making the safety save before heading down into Moon Grotto. Like I said, this is the sequence break, so we're going to be climbing back out of this area in a little bit.
Yeah, and as Athos lands into that Moon Grotto, goes for a quick cycle here. Looks like he just barely missed it, so that's going to cost him a little time if Lurking can get that cycle later on when he gets there. Lurking going for his Frankie Walk. Grimelius, can you tell me, why do we Frankie Walk?
We Frankie Walk because we need its experience. We need its experience to level up, and we need to level up in order to restore our energy. The idea is that this door over here takes 4 energy to open, but we only have a maximum capacity of 2, right? So you put 2 in the door, level up, which refills it, and then you put 2 more in the door. And that's why we need this. It's all about timing this level up correctly. But you have to be close enough to the door, which is where this magnetless version is difficult. Looks like Lurking nailed it. Now just has to get through his death gauntlet, while Athos on the left had a quick death, but not too costly, and he's made it to his double jump blind movement. He's going to move off camera.
Yeah, and we'll see that blind movement potentially a couple more times from both of our runners. Athos did that one very nicely. Moving up out of this double jump area, he'll head around these crushers, pick up another energy cell. Again, we'll be using those for speed later on, and then heading to a tricky set of double jumps and wall jumps that we know as Grotto Skip.
Yeah, we see a bit of a high five. Lurking on the right did get his God Cycle, saves him 8 seconds over his opponent, although he's going to need a lot more than that to catch up. Athos, while we were talking, effortlessly pulls off his Grotto Skip. It's a way to skip the left side of Grotto. You're meant to do this whole double jump platforming challenge, but you can just skip all of it. Another quick cutscene skip from Athos is going to let him despawn a bunch of boulders that are meant to impede your path as you climb out of here. But with that, Athos in a moment is going to be picking up the water vein where Lurking did successfully make it down to double jump, and is going to be doing the same blind movement.
Yeah, and that water vein is the key to our first dungeon. There are 3 dungeons, each containing 1 element that we as the players and controlling Ori, our nice little forest spirit, are supposed to restore in order to save the forest. Oh, Lurking taking some deaths coming up out of double jump tree.
Yeah, that movement is blind, which makes it tough.
Unfortunately, if you were hoping to see us restore any of the elements and save the forest, those tend to be slow, so we won't be doing any of them today.
Be a bit of a Pyrrhic victory at the end. Lurking has been having some troubles. To be clear, Athos over on the left is in the lead and is in, to be honest, a bit of a commanding lead. Athos is going to have some pretty rough deaths in order for Lurking to catch up, and those deaths absolutely do exist, especially in the second half of the run, but Lurking has some work to do to get back into this thing.
And both runners have a fair bit of energy. They can drop safety saves in a lot where they might not feel particularly the most confident in their movement, or just want to have a spot to come back to. But later in the run, those will almost completely vanish.
Yeah, that's right. Athos on the left doing another quick cutscene skip, that one using Rekindle. Like we said, you'll see a lot of those quick exit and reloads. It's usually, not always, but it's usually to skip cutscenes. It's kind of interesting here that Lurking got to the key to this dungeon right as Athos is starting it. Probably we should say a few words about this dungeon while we're here.
Yes, this first dungeon is the Ginso tree. It's designed to kind of showcase your wall jumping and double jumping abilities, because those are the abilities you have when you get here. So both of our runners will be moving up, climbing the tree until we find our next skill, which will kind of take the entire platforming dynamic of this game and turn it on its head.
Yeah, we'll talk about that skill when we get there. It's certainly the most unique one in this video game. You can see that Ginso is home to all these teleporters. They're pretty easy to understand. Just if you've ever played Portal, you know how they work. You go in one and come out the other. That death by Athos was intentional. It's to manipulate the cycle and get this little flower to shoot its projectile a little bit faster, just saves a handful of seconds. You have to wait on a second shot, which is where you saw him just kind of messing around and moving. We're about to come into the mini boss. Not a huge amount to say about this mini boss. He has a few random spawns and you just have to shoot him to death, but having quick flame makes it a lot faster. You can see his health just sort of clipping away with every shot.
Yeah, and this mini boss can be done with quick flame in 3 cycles. Looks like Athos is going to wind up getting a fast 4 cycle, and then we'll be continuing up through to this next little area. Lurking, for his part, has just entered the Ginso tree.
Yeah, what's the deficit you think right now? I'm trying to do the math in my head here. It looks like Athos is maybe a minute to a minute and a half ahead. Do you think it's that much?
Yeah, this is about a minute worth of time, which is fairly substantial, but again, not impossible to lose in the late game. Oh, and as we say that.
Yeah, Lurking took another death. Lurking, I don't think has been going for any particularly new strats. He tried something called telehopping there. Just, I guess, a testament that even runners at this caliber, it is a difficult game. Lurking on the right is going to try it again. But Athos on the left got Bash. Bash lets you latch onto things and shoot yourself in one direction, and then you shoot the thing you grabbed in the other direction. That applies to projectiles and enemies and certain world objects. And it's, as I said before, arguably Ori's most unique skill. It allows you to really just enhance your movement arsenal by a huge amount.
Yeah, and Athos is going to be using that bash ability as well as his jumps to come up here, collect some keystones, and then he's going to take an intentional death here on these spikes and put those keystones in the door. That's going to actually duplicate the keystones because of where we placed that save. So he's going to be able to leave the Ginso tree with 3 keystones in his pocket instead of none.
Yeah, the idea here is that you take a little bit of time loss in this section, but it allows you to skip a very long underwater swimming section later on. We're just not even going to have to go there, and that would not be possible without key dupe. A second mini-boss for Athos over on the left while Lurking is taking out the first one. The second mini-boss is certainly easier than the first one. With that, the intended path for Athos is to go up and restore the elements of water. We're not going to do that. Instead, we're going to go back to a teleporter that we briefly touched down in the Moon Grotto and take an alternate sequence-broken path into Swamp.
Yeah, and the biggest downside of this, it is faster for us, but it does come with a downside. Again, we are restoring the element of water, so all of the water in the game starts out poisonous, and because we are skip poisonous, so our runners will have to deal with that.
Yeah, I was trying to take a glance at the deficit there. Athos watching this cutscene. He's going to be moving on to his swamp entry where Lurking has gotten bashed. Pay attention to the left side right now. You have to move this frog, in a particular way and then use its projectiles to break the barricades. The first one he just shoots. The second one, you have to grab, double bash, no problem. First try, very nicely done. Let's see if Lurking can match it when he gets there.
Yeah, Lurking on the right, setting up for his key dupe. Looked like he was about a minute and 45 seconds behind there at the bash tree. So quite a bit to come up with to catch up to Athos, but definitely not impossible.
Yeah, not impossible because of that brutal late game. It might, well, maybe it wouldn't surprise anyone to hear, but with acquiring Stomp, that's roughly the halfway point in the run. If things go well, it's more than halfway. But let's just call it even and make it about 50%. As with many areas of the run, there is fast travel in this game, but only from preset spirit wells. So a lot of the time, as Athos is doing right now, you have to just manually go back out the way you came in, trying to move as optimally as you can. To say a word about Stomp, it's a ground pound, and it also allows you to move down more quickly than you otherwise could due to gravity. So you'll see these guys using it quite a bit just to go faster downward.
Yeah, now on the left, Athos going to reuse this frog, bashing off of it to get up to this ability cell. Those are going to essentially give us the same benefits as leveling up in terms of being able to level up abilities for either save anywhere or just to have the abilities. Right here, you didn't see anything, and hopefully won't see anything when Lurking gets there either. That was actually a cutscene skip that he did.
Yeah, it doesn't look like much, but it's very, very precise. With that, on the right side, pay attention to Lurking, who almost dipped his frog in the poison water and did the second time. Is going to have to try it again. Nice job by Athos over on the left to avoid death via a poison pit. Athos actually posted in the Discord chat that he is on PB pace, which would be tough to compare against Athos's PB. He is 14 seconds faster than Lurking's anyway, and Athos is just playing extremely well right now.
Yeah, he's having an excellent run. Lurking makes it through that swamp entry, so he'll be able to get to that stomp tree very quickly here. Athos picking up Charge Flame, which we don't use a lot, but unlocks the ability for us to continue leveling things up in this ability tree that he is keeping open for a cutscene skip coming up here in just a few seconds.
Yeah, Lurking on the right has had some nice hyper speeds, a bit of a trick to gain some additional speed on a reload. Did drop one of his double bashes. Nice job getting around with the intentional damage boost. So Lurking has made it to Stomp. We mentioned that that was the halfway point in terms of all the things that you do in this run. So you can see that Athos over on the left does have a very commanding lead. What he's doing now is heading into Valley entry, which will take him to the Valley of the Wind, the location of the next skill. But he's going to be doing a particularly interesting shortcut before he gets to that skill called Fast Stompless. What can you tell me about that one?
Well, Grim, the game, casually at least, intends us to climb around this right area where Athos currently is, and then bash and double jump our way over to a set of rocks that is above an owl's head. The owl's name is Kuro. She's the main antagonist of the story. We don't see her a whole lot. Instead, because that's slow and there's a cutscene involved, Athos is going to fire that shot from the spider using bash off to the left, run away quickly, and use the time while it's traveling to pick up that ability cell. He does it right. The spider shot connects with those rocks and destroys them and teleports him into that cutscene. So
yeah, Athos is just continuing to play at a very, very solid pace. Nailed the shot first try, no hesitation. With that, things for Athos are about to get extremely, extremely fast because he's about to get charge dash on the right, Lurking going for a tricky cutscene skip. I want to see if he can pull this off. Almost. Very, very close. Anyway, pay attention to the left. Here's a rocket jump. How's that for a cool trick? This is where things get insane and they become absolutely impossible to commentate. Athos is about to do one of the most gatekeeping tricks in terms of difficulty in the entire run, known as Sorrow Bash, where you have to manipulate this bird to get past all of these insta-kill spikes, just barely avoids killing the bird. Successful first try, and he's into Sorrow Pass. Well done.
yeah, and it's not over yet because he's going to take this frog, bait a shot at it up at the ceiling, and then we like this frog breaking ceiling so much that we're going to use bashes, charge dashes, and stomps to cancel those charge dashes to take this frog up with us so he can break another ceiling for us. Athos making that look easy. That is a very difficult sequence of inputs.
Every one of those stomp cancels, you have a 2-frame window, right?
I think 3-frame, but even so.
Yeah, and if you mess any of them up, you deal too much damage to the frog and he dies. Man, just on killer pace. This would be very tough for any runner to keep up with, especially with some of the deaths that Lurking has had. Lurking, for his part, has been making solid progress, just keeps making these little mistakes that are costing him time. With this, on the left, you're going to see another quick Save Anywhere cutscene skip from Athos, and then we're going to come back down and see the donation incentive met.
Yeah, Athos, on his way down, he's going to, having picked up that Sunstone, the key to the final dungeon, we completely skipped the second of 3 and most of the third, but he's just going to quickly grab this charged jump ability from this tree here in Sorrow Pass. We need that to both continue and to complete the requirements for the category, and then he'll be heading down toward that donation incentive as Lurking nails his fast stompless on the first try as well.
Yeah, both of these guys made that trick look easy. It's really, really not. Quick death by Athos, but that's not going to be very costly. Just sent him back to the tree. For anyone who's familiar with the Wilhelm scream, it's a sound effect. I don't know the origin of it. You could probably look it up. But it's a very recognizable, famous sound effect used in a lot of TV shows, movies, and games. And Ori's no exception. What you're going to see Athos do in a minute is grab a frog and throw him off a cliff, so I'm going to stop talking. Listen. Okay, hopefully we got that. I don't have audio, but I hope that came through.
Unfortunately, I think we're on audio from Lurking Assassin, so
right.
we'll have to call it out for you for chat once Lurking gets to that point. But you guys know what to listen for now. So meanwhile, Lurking making his way up through Sorrow Pass, about to do this frog juggle. Oh, he damaged the frog. That's actually really bad.
Yeah, Lurking's going to have to do a bit of a backup. You see him floating up. He has to go get a second frog. As we said, you need that frog to have a lot of health in order to survive the crazy juggle. A death by Lurking, but a safety save is right there. That will restore the frog's health, though. So Lurking can get his shot at the crazy juggle. Let's see if he can pull that off. This is very precise. Meanwhile, Athos working his way through Misty Woods, making it look easy. All of these spikes are insta-kill, just like the ones in Sorrow. And Lurking fell, just barely killed his frog. That was very close.
Yeah, he's going to take another intentional death there to reset on the frog and then go for this again. Meanwhile, Athos, having picked up the climb skill, it's really the only reason that we come to the Misty Woods in this run. We need all the skills. Climb is a skill. Otherwise, we would just leave, but in return for that, we get some of the best area for movement. We have all of our major movement tech at this point. We have charge jump to go up quickly. We have charge dashes to move sideways quickly. We have bash to redirect ourselves off of enemies. And we have stomp to move down quickly. So Athos is able to very quickly, I've been using that word a lot, move through this area, making short work of it.
It's an appropriate word to use for this run, though. Lurking did successfully get through his crazy juggle, albeit with some difficulties. Made it to his sunstone, so he's going to have to go pick up charge jump in a moment. Meanwhile, over on the left, Athos is about to fight the Misty mini-boss, so pay attention to this. And it's gone, just like that. Believe it or not, you can kill that guy even faster than that. He really poses not much of a challenge at all once you know how to deal with him.
Yeah, the basic attack from Sign deals very little damage, and while you can sit there and spam it a lot of our other movement abilities have a fair bit of damage attached to them, so can be used for some very powerful combat combinations.
Yeah, with that, Athos has every single skill in the game except for one. The skill that he doesn't have is called Light Grenade, and is located in a lower portion of the Blackroot Burrows called Lost Grove. So that's where Athos is going to be heading back to. He'll be doing some cutscene skips and stuff in the process. Lurking, for his part, is coming down, so we're going to listen again for this Wilhelm frog again. He's going to exit out the bottom, grab a frog, and bash it off the cliff, so I'm going to stop talking again.
And there it is.
The Wilhelm scream, ladies and gentlemen. Lurking starting his approach into the Misty Woods, a very, very cool area, whereas Athos, still just playing out of his mind, has exactly one ability point. This is routed out, spends a point to skip a very lengthy, like a 70-second cutscene or something. It's really slow, and we'll be approaching the last skill in the game called Light Grenade.
Yeah, and once Athos picks this up, he will be able to use a movement tech that I think Lurking will be demonstrating for us in more detail. Athos doesn't like them quite as much, but he'll be able to... Oh, he's just going to be on his way to Mount Horu, the final dungeon, where he'll be finishing out the run very quickly.
Yeah, Athos knows what these laser cycles are, so he's going to be moving carefully to try to get through them quickly while not getting himself zapped. This would also be a good time to mention health. We haven't talked about it much yet, but so far in the run, both of these guys have been at 3 health, which is very, very dangerous. Turns out that unless you're a TAS, you do actually need 5 health in order to survive a swim at the end of the final escape sequence. So Athos just picked up number 4. He's going to be getting number 5 in an area known as Forward Fields, just over to the left a little bit. And then he'll be on his way to the end. As you said, that's every skill in the game. We're just rushing to the finish line.
Yeah, and Athos even pulling up his pause menu to show us that he has all of the skills as he works his way across Forward Fields now.
Lurking just died in Misty Woods. He got unlucky with the frog location, which messed up everything, and it caused him to take an unfortunate death there in the laser. Lurking was already behind, and at this point, Athos is pretty much beyond all of the really costly mistakes he could make. But that is still kind of rough to see. Anyway, to check over on the left again, Athos is coming into the final dungeon of the game. We skipped the second one, by the way, didn't even mention it. You're not going to see much of this final dungeon either.
Yeah, it turns out that if you do some frame-perfect inputs when you load the game up in front of a door, the game gets confused. We're now at the end of this. Now Athos is going to start a cutscene, menu very fast, and screw the game up. And so now he's going to do the first 2 rooms of this final escape essentially blind in return for not having to watch this cutscene.
This is a relatively new trick, and it's risky, and again, just pulling it out like crazy. This is the final... This game's version of boss fights are basically these platforming gauntlets, and Athos is making short work of it. Still has 2 energy remaining, which is important, because the final trick of the game is frame perfect. It's called a grenade jump, where if you, throw a grenade and jump 1 frame later, or maybe I have it backwards, you get a huge burst of speed, which done correctly can allow you to shave 35 seconds off of the final cutscene, setting up for on the lower portion of this wall, queues up a charge jump first try and no soft lock.
GG to Athos. That'll be a very quick run from him, around like a 28:45-ish.
If that's not a PB, that's close. That's real close. Time is not called for Athos yet. By the way, it'll be called in maybe 20 seconds or so when we lose control of Nara. We'll call that out in just a moment. Lurking, for his part, has made it into Lost Grove and is going to be heading down towards Light Grenade as well. But over on the left, there's Naru, a character we haven't really seen yet. Getting up, we're going to be holding right. And time is called right... Wait for it. Now.
Yeah, so that looks like a 28:50 to me. Very fast performance from Athos. 12 seconds behind his PB. So... quite a run to pull off in a marathon setting. Always great to see those. For his part, Lurking Assassin has picked up his final skill, Light Grenade, and he'll be showing off some additional grenade jumps to leave this area even faster than Athos did.
Yeah, Lurking's going to make it look easy, but each of those is a frame-perfect set of inputs. You have to press one button and then another button 1 frame later. There are no keybinds or anything that we allow to make that easier. You do actually have to do the work. But with that, yeah, Lurking has every skill. He's going to be picking up the same health cells as his opponent, because Lurking also can't survive poison water without 5 health. Teleporting out of Blackroot Burrows, he's going to be heading to the Swamp Teleporter, which is the closest one that we have to Horror Fields. You're going to be seeing basically a repeat of a lot of the same movement, but I think it'll be cool to see how Lurking handles it, especially Warmth Skip.
Yeah, and Lurking showing off another one of those grenade jumps there.
I love that one.
It's a lot of fun. Picking up this 5th health cell, checking his UI there. He's going to be paying attention to how much energy he has. Something we didn't mention is that at the beginning of each of these escape sequences, the game is very nice and gives you a full refill of your health and energy. Ooh, that's dicey. This Warmth Skip trick that Athos did and Lurking will be doing, as Lurking sees his 1 energy and circles it for us, makes you lose that refill. So Lurking will be having to do this final escape on 1 energy, which is a little bit dicey.
Yeah, it's definitely scary. We see Lurking's attempts at door warp. This is another frame perfect trick. Nails it first try, just like Athos. You just have to press up to quote unquote enter the door on the first frame that the game loads, and then you get warped to the origin. There we go. Same Warmth Skip trick as before. You start the final cutscene, you exit, you go back and forth. That's intentional, such that if Lurking dies, he will kind of screw himself over. And with this, we have some blind movement getting through the first 2 rooms as before. Nails it, just like Athos did. Very nicely done. And now the real question is, can Lurking successfully get through the water and successfully pull off that grenade jump?
Yeah, he's left himself with 1/2 an energy, which is enough to grenade jump on, but if he messes those inputs up, he'll lose that energy and won't be able to do it, and he'll have to take that longer cutscene. Gets through the water, no problem, but it's very precise swim movement, and now just needs to bash himself off of these rocks and set up for this final grenade jump. Goes for it, gets the inputs, gets through. GG Lurking Assassin as well.
Very well done. Despite all of those mistakes, Lurking closed it out very, very strong and really confidently pulled off Warmth Skip and a first try door warp, and didn't die to the blind movements, and got a first try grenade jump. All of those things, especially under pressure, can be tricky and would have cost a lot more time to make mistakes. For example, Lurking could have decided to not do Warmth Skip at all and just get the health and energy refill, but he didn't. He went for it anyway, and I think that's awesome.
Yeah, I have to hand it to Lurking. Going for that in that situation is rough to do, but it's what he's used to doing. I've seen other runners decide not to do in time for Lurking. I've seen runners decide not to go for that Warmth Skip and have more problems, actually, because they're just not used to the movement as much.
Well, yeah, GG to both of them. This is a very difficult run, although, man, you wouldn't believe it watching these guys run. Lurking had some deaths, which cost him some time, but for the parts that he nailed, he really did nail them just as confidently as his opponents. For anyone who has never seen this game before and you think the run looks interesting, well, you're in luck, because it turns out that this is not the only appearance that Word gets at Hackathon. Tomorrow, well, for me, even depending on your time zone, it would be at night, but we have Covert Muffin running a seed of the randomizer of this game. This game does have a randomizer, just like something like Link to the Past. So if you want to see more of this game, make sure stick around during Hackathon anyway, but also stick around tomorrow evening for Muffin's run.
Yes, you sure as hell should, because this game is fantastic, as you just saw. So thank you so much for doing this. I'm really excited that you made it for the 3rd edition, that there's some Ori at this Hackathon. It's really a blessing to me. So thanks, guys.
Thanks for accepting it. And Athos and Lurking aren't in voice with us, but, well, Lurking is technically, but that was amazing. Good job.
Yeah, that was a great race. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, great race, and thanks, Grim, for commentating with me.
Yeah, pleasure. Good luck to all the other runners, and back to you, Sajiki.
Yo, thanks. I'm gonna hit the